Chinese might say that, well, we built up this country. Look, all the towns are built by us. The Malays would say, well, we were the original people and we administered this country. So we have a right. And of course, Indians have their own claims. But the fact is that Malaysia is built up by these three races: the indigenous people, which includes the Malays, the Chinese, and the Indians. If we are prepared to accept this, then we can have that national identity that we are looking for. We don't have to be single ethnic. It is all right if some of us are Malays, some of us are Chinese, some of us are Indians, for as long as we consider ourselves as the citizens of this country, as the loyal citizens of this country. If you consider yourself as the loyal citizens of this country, then your national identity is that of a Malaysian. But there are problems, of course. Well, the problem is one of sharing. We cannot have one race very, very advanced and another race very, very backwards. That is going to cause a lot of conflicts. Now, in a single ethnic country, the disparity between rich and poor is sufficient to cause conflicts between the rich and the poor. That is why the communist and the socialist ideologies were introduced. In Europe, 200 years ago, 150 years ago, there was this conflict between people of the same ethnic group, but they are divided because of the difference in their wealth. There was the entrepreneur or the capitalist class, and there were the workers' class. In Britain, for example, there were rich people who owned factories and industries, and poor people who work in these industries. The disparity is very big. The rich are very rich and the poor were very poor. Because of the disparity, there was conflict between rich and poor. And it was in this situation that Karl Marx came up with the idea of communism. Communism means eliminating the entrepreneurs, the business people, the capitalists, eliminating them, taking over all their industries as government-owned, and then, of course, whatever profits that comes from these industries will be shared by everyone, including the workers. In theory, that was fine. But industries thrive if all the people are rich. But if all the people are poor workers, they cannot buy most of the products that are produced. And therefore the industries have failed. So you can see that there is some kind of synergy or relation between the rich and the poor, between the workers and the capitalists. And even if the workers and the capitalists belong to the same race, still there will be extreme conflict, to the point where we know in Russia millions of people were killed in order to communize it, to become a communist state. Millions of rich people were killed because they want the wealth of these people to be owned by the government and supposedly distributed to all the poor people who would then become rich. But as we all know, they didn't become rich, they became poorer. That happens in a single ethnic country. But in a multi-ethnic country, if you have this disparity emphasized by differences in ethnicity or race, one race being rich, another race being poor, the fact of race is already something that can lead to conflicts. But when it is emphasized or amplified by differences in the wealth of the different races, then the potential for conflict is much greater. So it is important that we reduce the disparity. We cannot change the race. We cannot change the race. That is something that is people are born with. But we can reduce the disparity between the races so that the potential for conflict would be less. This is what we try to do in Malaysia. That is what the NEP, the New Economic Policy, is all about. To reduce the disparity in wealth between the one race and another. Of course, it means that we have to discriminate against one race in favor of another race. But the end result is what matters. The end result is that the disparity has been reduced between the Malays and the Chinese, so much so that during the 1997-1998 financial crisis, whereas in other countries, the blame was put on the Chinese, so much so that the indigenous people actually kill, burn, and rape Chinese people in their midst. In Malaysia, there was no such thing. There was no racial animosity because of the financial recession. People were calm, they don't fight each other, and they shoulder the problems of a recession together. This is what happened in 1997 and 98, which enabled the government to take measures to overcome the problems posed by the financial recession. So you can see that whereas we can accept the differences between the different races, the differences in culture, religion, etc., which we cannot change very much, but differences in the economic field must be reduced as much as possible. As they say in the New Economic Policy, they have to abolish or reduce poverty irrespective of race, and also to reduce the identification of race with economic function. We have done that for the past 30 years, and certainly today we see less disparity